So hello again for The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis. Last time we had chapter 14, Night Falls on Narnia. That finished with the others followed where the dogs led them and found a young Calormene sitting under a chestnut tree beside a clear stream of water. It was Emeth. He rose at once and bowed gravely. "Sir," he said to Peter, "I know not whether you are my friend or my foe, but I should count it my honour to have you for either. Has not one of the poets said that a noble friend is the best gift, and a noble enemy the next best?" "Sir," said Peter, "I do not know that there need be any war between you and us." "Do tell us who you are and what's happened to you," said Jill. "If there's going to be a story, let's all have a drink and sit down," barked the dogs. "We're quite blown." "Well, of course you will be if you keep tearing about the way you have done," said Eustace. So the humans sat down on the grass, and when the dogs had all had a very noisy drink out of the stream, they all sat down, bolt upright, panting, with their tongues hanging out of their heads a little on one side to hear the story. But Jewel remained standing, polishing his horn against his side. So now, the last but one chapter. Chapter 15. Further up and further in. "Know, O warlike kings," said Emeth, "and you, O ladies whose beauty illuminates the universe, that I am Emeth, the seventh son of Har-Phatarchen of the city of Teshishbarn, westward beyond the desert. I came lately into Narnia with 29 others, under the command of Rishta-Tarkan. Now when I first heard that we should march upon Narnia, I rejoiced, for I had heard many things of your land, and desired greatly to meet you in battle. But when I found that we were to go in disguised as merchants, which is a shameful dress for a warrior and the son of a Tarkan, and to work by lies and trickery, then my joy departed from me. And most of all, when I found that we must wait upon a monkey, and when it began to be said that Tash and Aslan were one, then the world became dark in my eyes. But always since I was a boy I have served Tash, and my great desire was to know more of him, if it might be to look upon his face. But the name of Aslan was hateful to me. And as you have seen, we were all called together outside the straw-roofed hovel night after night, and the fire was kindled, and the ape brought forth out of the hovel something upon 4 legs that I could not well see, and the people and the beasts bowed down and did honour to it. But I thought the Tarkan is deceived by this ape, for this thing that comes out of the stable is neither Tash nor any other god. But when I watched the Tarkan's face, and marked every word that he said to the monkey, then I changed my mind, for I saw that the Tarkan did not believe in it himself. Then I understood that he did not believe in Tash at all, for if he had, how could he dare to mock him? When I understood this, a great rage fell upon me, and I wondered that the true Tash did not strike him down, strike both the monkey and the Tarkan with fire from heaven. Nevertheless I hid my anger and held my tongue, and I waited to see how it would end. But last night, as some of you know, the monkey brought not forth the yellow thing, but said that all who desired to look upon Tashlan, for so they mixed the 2 words to pretend that they were one, must pass one by one into the hovel. And I said to myself, doubtless this is some other deception. But when the cat had followed in, and had come out again in a madness of terror, then I said to myself, surely the true Tash, whom they called on without knowledge or belief, has now come among us, and will avenge himself. And though my heart has turned into water inside me, because of the greatness and terror of Tash, yet my desire was stronger than my fear, And I put force upon my knees to stay them from trembling, and on my teeth that they should not chatter, and resolved to look upon the face of Tash, though he would slay me. So I offered myself to go into the hovel, and the Tarkan, though unwillingly, let me go. As soon as I had gone in at the door, the first wonder was that I found myself in this great sunlight, as we are all now, though the inside of the hovel had looked dark from the outside. But I had no time to marvel at this, for immediately I was forced to fight for my head against one of our own men. As soon as I saw him, I understood that the monkey and the Tarkan had set him there to slay any who came in, if he were not in their secrets. So that this man also was a liar and a mocker, and no true servant of Tash. I had the better will to fight him, and having slain the villain, I cast him out behind me through the door. Then I looked about me, and I saw the sky and the wide lands, and smelled the sweetness. And I said, "By the gods, this is a pleasant place. It may be that I am come into the country of Tash." And I began to journey into the strange country and to seek him. So I went over much grass and many flowers, and among all kinds of wholesome and delectable trees, until lo, in a narrow place between two rocks, there came to meet me a great lion. The speed of him was like the ostrich, and his size was like an elephant. His hair was like pure gold, and the brightness of his eyes like gold that is liquid in the furnace. He was more terrible than the flaming mountain of Lagor, and in beauty he surpassed all that is in the world, even as the rose in bloom surpasses the dust of the desert. Then I fell at his feet and thought, surely this is the hour of my death, for the lion, who is worthy of all honour, will know that I have served Tash all my days, and not him. Nevertheless, it is better to see the lion and die than to be Tisroc of the world and live and not to have seen him. But the glorious one bent down his golden head and touched my forehead with his tongue and said, "Son, thou art welcome." But I said, "Alas, Lord, I am no son of thine, but the servant of Tash." He answered, "Child, all the service thou hast done to Tash, I count as service done to me." Then, by reasons of my great desire for wisdom and understanding, I overcame my fear and questioned the glorious one, and said, "Lord, is it then true, as the ape said, that thou and Tash are one?" The lion growled so that the earth shook, but his wrath was not against me, and he said, "It is false, not because he and I are one, but because we are opposites. I take to me the services which thou hast done to him. For I and he are of such different kinds that no service which is vile can be done to me, and no service which is not vile can be done to him. Therefore, if any man swear by Tash and keep his oath for the oath's sake, it is by me that he has truly sworn, though he know it not, and it is I who will reward him. And if any man does a cruelty in my name, then though he says the name Aslan, it is Tash whom he serves, and by Tash his deed is accepted. Dost thou understand, child?" I said, "Lord, thou knowest how much I understand." But I said also, for the truth constrained me, "Yet I have been seeking Tash all my days." "Beloved," said the glorious one, "unless thy desire had been for me, thou wouldst not have sought so long and so truly, for all find what they truly seek." Then he breathed upon me and took away the trembling from my limbs and caused me to stand upon my feet. And after that he said not much, but that we should meet again, and I must go further up and further in. Then he turned himself about in a storm and a flurry of gold, and he was gone suddenly. And since then, O kings and ladies, I have been wondering to find him, and my happiness is so great that it even weakens me like a wound. And this is the marvel of marvels, that he called me beloved, me who am but as a dog. "Eh, what's that?" said one of the dogs. "Sir," said Emmet, "it is but a fashion of speech which we have in Calormen." "Well, I can't say it's one I like very much," said the dog. "He doesn't mean any harm," said an older dog. "After all, we call our puppies boys when they don't behave properly." "So we do," said the first dog. "Or girls." "Shh," said the old dog. "That's not a nice word to use. Remember where you are." And there's a little picture of the two dogs. And there's also a little picture of another animal. "Look," said Jill suddenly. Someone was coming, rather timidly, to meet them. A graceful creature on 4 feet, all silvery grey. And they stared at him for a whole 10 seconds, before 5 or 6 voices said all at once, "Why, it's old Puzzle!" They had never seen him by daylight with the lion skin off, and it made an extraordinary difference. He was himself now, a beautiful donkey, with such a soft grey coat, and such a gentle, honest face, that if you had seen him, you would have done just what Jill and Lucy did, rushed forward and put your arms around his neck, and kissed his nose, and stroked his ears. When they asked him where he had been, he said he had come in at the door along with all the other creatures, but he had, well, to tell the truth, he had been keeping out of their way as much as he could, and out of Aslan's way. For the sight of the real lion had made him so ashamed of all that nonsense about dressing up in a lion skin that he didn't know how to look anyone in the face. But when he saw that all his friends were going away westward, and after he had had a mouthful of grass, "And I've never tasted such good grass in my life," said Puzzle, he plucked up his courage and followed. "But what I'll do if I really have to meet Aslan, I'm sure I don't know," he added. "You'll find it will be all right when you really do," said Queen Lucy. Then they went forward together, always westward, for that seemed to be the direction Aslan had meant when he cried out, "Further up and further in." Many other creatures were slowly moving the same way, but that grassy country was very wide and there was no crowding. It still seemed to be early, and the morning freshness was in the air. They kept on stopping to look round and to look behind them, partly because it was so beautiful, but partly also because there was something about it which they could not understand. "Peter," said Lucy, "where is this, do you suppose?" "I don't know," said the High King. "It reminds me of somewhere, but I can't give it a name. Could it be somewhere we once stayed for a holiday when we were very, very small?" "It would have to have been a jolly good holiday," said Eustace. "I bet there isn't a country like this anywhere in our world. Look at the colours. You couldn't get a blue like the blue on these mountains in our world." "Is it not Aslan's country?" said Tirion. "Not like Aslan's country on top of that mountain beyond the eastern end of the world," said Jill. "I've been there." "If you ask me," said Edmund, "it's like somewhere in Narnia. Look at those mountains ahead, and the big ice mountains beyond them. Surely they're rather like the mountains we used to see from Narnia, the ones up westward beyond the waterfall." "Yes, so they are," said Peter, "only these are bigger." "I don't think those ones are so very like anything in Narnia," said Lucy. "But look there." She pointed southward to their left. Everyone stopped and turned. "Those hills," said Lucy, The nice woody ones and the blue ones behind. Aren't they very like the southern border of Narnia?" "Like?" cried Edmund, after a moment's silence. "Why, they're exactly like. Look, there's Mount Pyre with his forked head, and there's the pass into Archenland and everything." "And yet they're not like," said Lucy. "They're different. They have more colours on them, and they look further away than I remembered, and they're more... oh, I don't know." "More like the real thing," said the Lord Diggory softly. Suddenly, Farsight the eagle spread his wings, soared 30 or 40 feet up into the air, circled round, and then alighted to the ground. And there's a little picture of him. "Kings and queens," he cried, "we have all been blind. We are only beginning to see where we are. From up there I have seen it all. Ettingsmuir, Beaver's Dam, the great river, and Cair Paravel still shining on the edge of the eastern sea. Narnia is not dead. This is Narnia." "But how can it be?" said Peter. "For Aslan told us older ones that we should never return to Narnia. Yet here we are." "Yes," said Eustace, "and we saw it all destroyed and the sun put out." "And it's all so different," said Lucy. "The eagle is right," said the Lord Diggory. "Listen, Peter. When Aslan said you could never go back to Narnia, he meant the Narnia that you were thinking of. But that was not the real Narnia. That had a beginning and an end. It was only a shadow or a copy of the real Narnia, which has always been here and always will be here, just as our world, England and all, is only a shadow or copy of something in Aslan's real world. You need not mourn over Narnia, Lucy. All of the old Narnia that mattered, all the dear creatures, have been drawn into the real Narnia through the door. And of course it is different as a real thing is from a shadow, or as waking life is from a dream." His voice stirred everyone like a trumpet as he spoke these words. But when he added under his breath, "It's all in Plato, all in Plato. Bless me, what do they teach them at these schools?" Then the older ones laughed. It was so exactly like the sort of thing they had heard him say long ago in that other world where his beard was grey instead of golden. He knew why they were laughing and joined in the laugh himself. But very quickly they all became grave again, for as you know, there is a kind of happiness and wonder that makes you serious. It is too good to waste on jokes. It is as hard to explain how this sunlit land was different from the old Narnia as it would be to tell you how the fruits of that country taste. Perhaps you will get some idea of it if you think it like this. You may have been in a room in which there was a window that looked out on the lovely bay of the sea, or on a green valley that wound away among mountains. And in the wall of that room, opposite to the window, there may have been a looking glass. And as you turned away from the window, you suddenly caught sight of the sea or the valley all over again in the looking glass. And the sea in the mirror, or the valley in the mirror, were in one sense just the same as the real ones. Yet at the same time they were somehow different, deeper, more wonderful, more like places in a story. In a story you have never heard, but very much want to know. The difference between the old Narnia and the new Narnia was like that. The new one was a deeper country. Every rock and flower and blade of grass looked as if it meant more. I can't describe it any better than that. If ever you get there, you will know what I mean. It was the unicorn who summed up what everyone was feeling. He stamped his right forehoof on the ground and he neighed and he cried, "I have come home at last. This is my real country. I belong here." This is the land I have been looking for all my life, though I never knew it until now. The reason why we loved the old Narnia is that it sometimes looked a little like this. Bree-hee-hee! Come further up, come further in. He shook his mane and he sprang forward into a great gallop, a unicorn's gallop, which in our world would have carried him out of sight in a few moments. But now a most strange thing happened. Everyone else began to run, and they found, to their astonishment, that they could keep up with him. Not only the dogs and the humans, but even fat little Puzzle and short-legged Poggin the dwarf. The air flew in their faces as if they were driving fast in a car without a windscreen. The country flew past as if they were seeing it from the windows of an express train. Faster and faster they raced, but no one got hot or tired or out of breath. So, next time is the last chapter. Chapter 16. Farewell to Shadowlands.